So I'm going to click go live and we'll see what happens. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here. This is the Meadows and Makers podcast. My name is Greg Dowd. I am the host of the podcast. This show is all about trying to live a more self-reliant life and chatting with folks that are building the reality that we wish to see, trying to be the change in the world that we wish to see, and in the challenging times we have coming up ahead of us. So today I am joined with Niti Bali. She is the founder of Farm to Fork Meat Riot, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. She's an author, a speaker, a mama bear, a lifestyle coach, and she can be found at farmtoforkmeatriot.org. Thank you for being here, Niti. I appreciate you hanging in there with me with those technical difficulties in the beginning.
Oh, I really appreciate you so much, Greg, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here today. So I usually start the podcast off, if my podcast, I usually do it in a small community through the Hive platform. It's a blogging platform based on the cryptocurrency Hive. And I started there. I started on Steemit, and I was blogging and getting into writing a blog and doing all that. And so typically I've been pulling on guests from all across the world that are doing like homesteading and makers and people that are, interesting folks that I believe are pushing, creating the world that they want to see. And that was what I wanted to talk to you today about was your book that you wrote. The Farm to Fork Meat Riot book, and there's some great ideas in here that I think some folks should go check out and get your book. But we're going to talk about some of that today, but I usually start off the podcast by having you explain a little bit about your background and who you are. So
Okay, so I don't know where to start. Let's see. I guess I should say that I feel that I became more aware of the fact that, we're all creators and we all can really, operate with deliberate intention and create the world that we want, and that we're responsible for that. I guess I kind of knew that a little bit all the time, but once I became a mother and, was facing adversities with our kids, then I definitely realized the power that, each of us has. And, our story, I guess I became more into speaking and wanting to share and to teach more after my daughter was diagnosed with esthesioneuroblastoma in 2007. And we went through, crisis with our family. She was only 2 years old. I don't think any parent is expecting anything crazy like that to happen. We certainly weren't. She was thriving. She was very articulate. If you'd have seen her, you wouldn't believe that there was anything wrong with her. And so for her to one day just not be able to breathe, it was terrifying. All of a sudden her head started swelling, and it really knocked us off our socks. Like we were not prepared at all. There was nothing leading towards her not being well that we could have noticed. I guess now in retrospect, I can see she wasn't sleeping well, but a lot of 2-year-olds don't sleep well. So yeah, I didn't know that was like kind of a big deal or anything. And what I realize now actually is that if your kids aren't sleeping well, something's wrong. And it's normally, lifestyle related. But because of what we're faced with in the world today, they've created this crazy normal that is not normal, where you have, children with rickets and they're not calling it rickets, or, people are struggling with disease and they're making everyone believe that it is really just you getting older and this is just normal, and it is not normal. So
Yeah,
it's
I can't tell you the amount of people in my life, and your story kind of hit home with me as I've had a tragedy in my family with the loss of my brother several years ago, and it really hit home with me in the book. I mean, um, that the whole system as it stands right now, it really is completely antithetical to anyone's health whatsoever.
there's no health in there. And I'm sorry, I do remember you telling me that when I met you in Tennessee. And I'm really sorry for your loss. And this is why I speak and why I wrote the book and why I do what I do is I'm just, fed up. And I think everybody should be upset and no one should be allowing this suffering to continue. I mean, there's just needless suffering all around. And so you're asking me where am I coming from? I mean, I'm angry. And I'm not mad about the fact that I lost my child. I'm mad about the fact that anybody has to even suffer and struggle, and that literally, we're being poisoned and violated and made to believe that it's just our fault, or this is just normal. There is nothing normal that's going on right
Right.
now. So
Right. So, yeah, the story there. I mean, I remember reading through the book and breaking down a little bit because of what I was reading, but she was kind of the catalyst for you to start to turn you and your family's life in a different direction. Uh, I remember in part of the book reading that one day you came home and you were cleaning out all of your cabinets to get rid of everything in there, like all the perfumes, the cleaning products, the things in your refrigerator, and you were like, okay, we're starting from zero.
oh
How
my
was that with your family, and how did they respond, and how did you get them on board with going in a different direction?
wow. I don't wait to get anybody on board. I just do what's supposed to be done. So, I'm
Yeah.
more of the just handle it kind of, like I feel like it is my work as a mother, as a wife to my husband. And, we made a decision that I was going to stay home for us to be able to have a family. And everything we did was very deliberate and very intentional. And, a lot of folks might feel like, oh, she's just a domestic housewife, because that's such an insult these days. And I'm like, you know what? There is nothing more noble than for you to take responsibility for your family. And, why would I go out to serve a job or a boss when I have a husband? And why would I do anything to serve anyone else and not serve my family? And that's one of the brainwashed, I would say, false beliefs in the world right now, that people are supporting, that, unless you go out and make money, that what you're doing isn't noble or worthy, or I don't know what. I mean, what's more worthy than me being able to nourish my children and to educate my children and to protect my children and advocate for my husband and make sure that he's doing okay? I really just don't understand. And, I'm here to say that, when women's liberation was coming around, I thought I was for women's lib, in the sense that, I mean, I was for it because in the 80s, I have a deadbeat dad. Okay. So my deadbeat dad was like really abusive to my mother. And it took my mother's father coming here from India to tell her, I didn't raise you to just be abused by this lunatic, so you need to leave him. And she said, well, you arranged my marriage, so, I'm just honoring your arrangement. And so he said, well, I'm unarranging it, like this is not the way. And in the 80s in Charlotte, North Carolina, my mother couldn't own real estate.
Okay.
I don't know if people realize that. And so, you know,
Wow.
There were plenty of folks that were being divorced around that time, as we all well know. And, it was a part of this divide and conquer, art of war style attack that was happening to the people. But in our personal situation, he just was a deadbeat. So that was what was happening there. But a lot of our friends, like as I was growing up, a lot of my friends, their parents were getting divorced, and those women couldn't own a house. They couldn't have a house. They were only able to rent an apartment because women weren't allowed to own property in the 80s. And so Women's Live was for women to be able, like, if your husband dies, now you just don't own the house. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So that was what Women's Live was about. It wasn't about women hating men. Whatever this current, convoluted belief, false belief of what women's liberation was supposed to be about, this is not it. And that is not what any of us were wanting when it began. When it began, all we wanted was that if, your husband dies, then you shouldn't have to be homeless. If
Right.
you never have a husband, you shouldn't have to be homeless because your parents died, your daddy died, or you can't live with your brother or whatever. So that was really all, because otherwise women were obliged to live with their brother, or, the brothers were also responsible for their unwed sisters. I mean, this is a thing. This was a big deal. And it was because women weren't allowed to own property. And really, that was the long and the short of it. And as far as women getting paid, or men being paid more, I mean, I just want to say this because it really bothers me, because women were being paid back then when men weren't allowed to excel or to move up in positions of higher authority or money unless they were married. They had to, if they weren't able to even manage a family, then they felt that they didn't have the experience to run a business or to manage other people. So if you were single, man, you weren't getting a position like that.
Or you couldn't move up.
Yeah, you couldn't move up unless you were married. And when you were married, then the couple was interviewed. And, the company wanted to know if the wife was going to be able to keep her husband happy and healthy and manage the household. And she was also supposed to be keeping, tabs on philanthropic opportunities in the community, because that was how the company would decide where they would make their philanthropic contributions. And that was how communities were supported, not just through the people, but through the local businesses. So I don't think young people today know that. I don't think if you're 47 or under, you really know that.
No, I did not know that. Not until the 80s you were talking about women owning property. But now it's completely turned into this whole pitting men against women and basically making the dad look like a deadbeat dude all the time in TV shows, and, basically pitting men and women against each other when we really complement each other. And
we're not the same.
Yeah, and we work when men and women work together, it creates like a really powerful effect. When you have a really strong couple in your community, you have like people gather around those people. The energy is almost like you can feel the energy off of a couple like that.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
In my experience too, yeah. And that's what it was before. Women were always queens, and all these young girls who think that that's not true, y'all don't understand. And you have no idea what you're talking about, because women were always queens.
Yeah, the decisions that the mom makes is like, a big part of what the family leads the family in a certain direction.
Well, that was our work, right? The work of the women and, the moms particularly was to teach, it's our work to teach children how to nourish themselves, to, teach them how to care for themselves. And nowadays, everybody acts like, oh, they're even proud to say they don't know how to cook. What are you talking about? I mean, you don't know how to feed yourself? That's ridiculous. And I'm not saying that like a dig or a slam or anything like that. I mean, I just mean that it's a basic, essential, you know, skill. It's a life skill. It's a basic, essential life skill. And I mean, that was the other part of it. Like they were making men believe that, they were useless if they didn't know how to cook or something. That's crazy. That's crazy. I mean, sure, it's fine if you know how to grill or if you know how to make something or whatever. But nowadays, it's like women know how to do nothing, men know how to do more, or women only know how to do corporate. They don't know how to do anything that would run a household, or they're overwhelmed by everything. Like, our children aren't feeling well. We don't know what to do, la, la, la. And I really just want to help them get back into their full power, because this was an attack from the outside. So I'm not trying to, I don't want to diminish women out there, who are in the corporate world or anything. That isn't my intention. I just mean that it is the training, it is the programming. The institutions have become our masters. Like, we created institutions to serve us, and they have become our masters. And we can stop that because we just have to not allow it.
I remember part of the book that you were talking about how corporations were only formed to accomplish certain products, and then they were dissolved.
Yes.
And so that
Not even
was
products,
very
but
interesting.
for a greater good. So in America, originally, you weren't allowed to have a corporation because they didn't want to have this imbalance. The founding fathers didn't want us to ever have to deal with this imbalance of the corporatocracy that we're experiencing right now. And so you were not allowed to have or form a corporation unless it was for the greater good. And it had to have an end date, a beginning and an end date. So they did that, like, the railroad. That was one of the projects. The transatlantic railroad there was a corporation that was formed for the railroad, and that work was once the railroad was done, then that corporation was to be dissolved. And I mean, a lot of the damage that happened just in building the railroad is evidence of the abuse a corporation can have, because once you create an institution like a corporation, it no longer operates as a human, and it is no longer responsible as a human. And so there were a lot of human rights violations with that entire project, and there was a lot of deaths and a lot of murders, as we well know. I mean,
There's no liability. There's not any liability on a single person to help give feedback to the system. It's just uh, basically like a one-way information stream kind of thing, I think.
top down. It's like a top down thing. And we created these institutions to provide us with ease to be able to easily share information with people. And as you know, like, as evidenced by this fake media that we have, I mean, they're not fake, they're real. They're for real, abusing their power because they're all owned and managed by the corporatocracy. So there's that problem.
Yeah, that's where I kind of wanted to get into how how this kind of relates to the food system, because our food system has grown into this giant corporate machine with like Monsanto and these huge farms that are just industrial farms. Like you got the JBL guys that do the majority of the processing for all the beef and these confined animal feeding operations, and how what we were talking about in the book was that the regenerative meat basically has so many more nutrients than animals fed with grain and like GMOs and soy, that there's so much more nutrition in the meat that are on the grass,
Yes.
that it takes a lot less to keep you full.
Nourish you, yes.
Yeah.
So what I was saying was that animals that are healthier than you are able to nourish you, and animals that are in kidney and renal failure cannot. And so this is not me villainizing grain fed. This is me just stating the fact that when you have a ruminant animal that's supposed to be on grass and you feed it grain, then it's going to have kidney and renal issues. And that's a digestive problem. And so that digestive problem, that kidney renal issue, means that that animal is not 100% well. And if that animal is sicker than you are and you eat it, I mean, if you require some kind of scientific proof to understand that when you're, like when you go out into the woods and you see a deer frolicking in the woods, or
Yep.
you happen to see a deer leaning up against a tree, which one looks like that's the one that you should eat? Not the one leaning up against a tree.
Right. Yeah. I'm a deer hunter myself. Yeah.
If you see one leaning up against a tree, you might want to just put it out of its misery because that's the nice, kind thing to do. But you're definitely not going to eat it.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I guess there's a bunch of plant lovers out there that can't even believe that I would even want to eat the deer frolicking through the woods. But, I'm going to tell y'all something. So, our digestive system is the same. Everybody's digestive system, like all human beings. I'm talking about human beings. So chickens all have the same digestive system. All the chickens. Cows all have the same digestive system. Pigs all have the same, zebras. You guys get the idea, right? So every species has a digestive system for that species, and they're all the same. So when people tell me that nourishing someone, it's different for everybody, it is absolutely not. Your digestive system is exactly the same as everybody's. So I 1,000,000% disagree with you. And anybody who's raising livestock knows that you have to be able to know how to nourish a cow or a pig or a chicken or whatever it is that you're raising. And you're raising it based on its digestive system. Now, the Department of Ag had an institution, wanted to industrialize life. So what you were calling these large farms, I would say no, it's just like what you said, a CAFO. It's a confined animal feeding operation. So it's not a farm. It is an industrial complex that is not normal. It is not natural, and it is not honoring the laws of the universe, like, the law of nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people say to me, well, that's your opinion, I say, oh no, I stopped operating in opinion when I murdered my daughter because I didn't know any better. And I know that sounds really crazy and strong, but it's true. I take full responsibility for the fact that I didn't know anything better. And I don't feel bad about it. And I'm not saying this to y'all to make you guys feel any kind of way about it. I'm just telling you my truth that I have resolved and accepted, is that, I have to take responsibility that I didn't know something. And now I know better, and I want you to know better. And so it is only my intention to bring light to the path of truth for you that I realize that I don't want you to have to figure out. Not in the same way that I did. Like, I really don't want anyone to have to repeat that and figure it out on their own.
Right.
But, some people just need to touch the fire, I guess. But back to what I was saying, your digestive system is what it is.
Yeah.
Now, we have moods and we have addictions because we've been poisoned for many years. And when we've been poisoned, and what I mean is that we're on fake food, and our food system has been compromised for minimally 100 years. Minimally 100 years. And that was when in 1910 they filed the Flexner Report. And by they, I mean John D. Rockefeller.
The Rockefellers, yeah.
Yeah, they filed the Flexner Report, which effectively established a standard of care. And when they established the standard of care, it affected everything from regulating our medicine to regulating our food to regulate, and everything became centralized, and women were pushed out of the home. And that was when women were put to work during, post World War II. And the food system was industrialized. And then they, right behind that, launched this, women's lib campaign, only they made it about women against men. Women only jumped on board because of what I said, because we just needed, and even men, there were a lot of men for women's lib too, because husbands wanted their wives to be able to hold on to their home for their children or whatever. I mean, imagine you're a husband with 5 children with your beautiful wife, and you're going to invest in health insurance or life insurance, but you don't care if they can own the home.
Right.
If something was to happen to you. No.
Yeah. So, I mean, talking about, some of the problems that we face with this whole system that's been built, what is your vision of the future of being able to support the regenerative farm? When you're talking about the digestive system, the human digestive system, that, we're pretty much meant to live on animals, basically. And, myself, I'm very into technology, and like I got into doing aquaponics and all kinds of stuff. And I kind of felt like, hey man, it'd be cool to like have these huge hydroponics things growing plants all over the place. And like we can grow like total abundance, but I didn't realize that animals are an integral part of the soil of the earth. And without the animals,
have plants without animals,
you don't have it. You don't have the soil. You start to lose everything. So could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. It's so funny, Greg. Like someone said to me, well, you don't need manure to raise animals. And I'm like, right. You don't even need a medium to raise plants. Sorry. You don't even need a medium, right? Because you could do microgreens with just water and air or sprout.
Yeah.
So, but let me ask you some questions. You know how to grow all this stuff, and everybody's prepping and doing all this stuff. They got all these, they got a jungle growing in their backyard. Is that enough to make you satisfied?
I mean, it takes a lot of effort to get to a point where you can completely sustain yourself off of your own property, and grow all the produce that you're going to need. And I get into.
I mean, I'm asking you, Greg.
Yeah.
Can you go outside and eat everything out of your backyard and be completely satisfied?
Absolutely not.
Right. So that's the point. Like the point is that, yes, you can grow things that you can eat. Okay. And yes, you can grow enough. You definitely can grow enough on 1 acre for sure, to last you for as long as you need. Okay. However, our digestive system only allows us to convert every single thing that we put into our mouth into sugar. It doesn't allow us to produce fat or protein. It doesn't let us convert anything to fat or protein. So let's just use plant proteins that everybody wants to talk about. Peas, plant protein, legumes, beans, whatever. They never work for you because you're just making sugar out of it. You cannot convert it to fat. And fat is essential. That's why you have these things. It's called essential fatty acids.
Okay.
I did not make that up. It's not my opinion. It's essential fatty acid. Mm-hmm. You can also not do without protein. You need essential amino acids. You need them. But there is no essential carb. There's none. And the amount of glucose that you need to operate on is so minuscule. But interestingly, if we eat fat and we eat protein, or even if we just only eat fat and we don't even eat any protein, we can make glucose out of fat. Our body can do that because our body can literally convert everything to sugar, including fat. But it can't take sugar, which is plants, and convert it to fat. Can't do it.
I gotcha.
So, for that reason alone, you can survive and live off of animals as evidenced by the Eskimos,
Yeah.
as evidenced by a lot of tribes in Africa, or a lot of these uncivilized tribes. Like, if you look at the uncivilized world, if you were, traveling by wagon out west, you didn't have a garden and you couldn't wait for a garden.
But you could bring some chickens with you.
Right. They did, right? They carried some livestock. They had livestock with them. It was a slow trek, and those livestock were able to graze everywhere they were going. They could eat everything, but we couldn't eat everything. But we could eat the livestock. Isn't that interesting?
Oh yeah, I mean, this is a discussion that I get into with folks that if you're gonna do the whole vegan thing, I mean, more power to you. But I have the same feeling that you do, is that we need animals in our ecosystem. And I went to a conference in 2020. I went to the Anarchapulco conference, and Lily Forrester was there. She's a member of the community. She gave a speech on the carnivore diet. She went carnivore, and her skin was all bad. She had really bad skin problems before this. After going on the carnivore, I mean, you could physically see the difference. Like, her skin looked real healthy. Her hair was in good shape. She had really bad hair before that. A lot of the issues that she had with her health kind of cleared up, but like, you could see the difference. And then there was also another lady that was in that talk that she was a vegan, and then she said that she did start eating animals again, and her hair got better. Her nails got stronger. Her teeth got better. And there's all kinds of cool people you meet at these conferences. And another guy was, his name was Clive DeCarl, and he was talking about how grass-fed animals have an essential vitamin, the vitamin K2, that helps with all those things. In addition to what you were talking about earlier, there's like a big campaign against people eating fat. Well, your brain is like mostly fat.
100% fat. I mean, listen, you cannot make cells without fat. Like, the only thing that all your cells in your whole body are made with fat. So that's number one. Number two, your entire body is regenerating. We're regenerating,
continuously,
animals. Yeah, and we could regenerate for hundreds of years. There really is proof of life for hundreds of years. We just kill ourselves. We kill ourselves because basically you get too big for your britches, and you just feel like you just know it all, and that's just crazy. So there's that. But I don't have chlorophyll running through my veins. I just don't. I'm made of animals, and my cells are made with fat. So I have to eat fat to make cells. That's just period and end of discussion. There's like nothing else to say about that. And I talk about in my book about, I didn't think about our health from a cellular perspective until Meenakshi was diagnosed and we're in the hospital. And when they talk about cancer, they're always referring to everything on a cellular level. And so I don't need to wait for somebody to get cancer to have that conversation. I mean, we could have been having that conversation any time before that. And so I want people to have this conversation and understand that, when people say, I just don't feel good on protein, I'm like, well, maybe you don't, because protein's still going to be high sugar. But you need the fat. You need the fat. You need the fat. And to go from being a sugar burner to a fat burner is a quantum leap. So you can't just do it in a minute. It is, something that you should probably work with a coach on, because if you don't, then you're going to have side effects, and there is an adaptation period. And, it is nuanced, and people don't like when I say that. They don't want to say that it's nuanced because they feel like they should be able to just by themselves start just eating meat and fat and it should just be fine. And sure, you could white knuckle it and just do it. I mean, because, what would you do if you were stranded out in the middle of nowhere? You would just anyway become a fat burner because you don't have time. You would be eating all the animals just to live long enough to wait for your garden to grow if you were trying to plant a garden. And you would be long in ketosis and be a fat burner and satisfied and satiated before that. And once your garden finally grew, you'd be like, dude, I don't even need the garden because I can do more when I'm not eating things out of the garden. I think that's what people would realize, because they would have had, during that gestation period of waiting on the garden, they would have realized the, power that they're gaining from the fat and from the protein. So.
Yeah, I learned, or I was listening in a talk with Joel Salatin recently where he was talking about grass-fed beef has over 300% more riboflavin than the like a grain finished beef, I guess. And so that's actually like I guess the hormone or whatever that keeps you from being like, or the vitamin, it's a vitamin B, riboflavin, I believe, that keeps you kind of stable. So it keeps you from having like the crazy highs and lows, mood swings kind of thing. Something he was talking about.
I mean, look, there's so many things. I don't think that it's fair to just point out one thing, like a lot of people are like, oh, you have to be high in this and low in that and whatever. And I'm like, really? Do you even know that? You don't really know that. What I know is that, if a tornado was to hit my house and rip it all away, I can't put it back together with, bathroom tiles and doorknobs. I can't. And I have to have all the parts and pieces to put it back together. And I don't know anybody who knows all the parts and pieces that we're made out of, because as far as I know, we don't have any ability to just create man. We don't know how to just create man.
Well, I think I think the agenda might be to move in that direction. If you look at like a brave new world with the open scene is starting to create humans in
Frankensteins.
In
they're trying to
jars.
Yeah. Okay. So they're dehumanizing everyone. They've been doing this forever. And, everybody's wanting to create this Frankenstein, which is interesting. I was listening to somebody else talking earlier, and what they said is fascinating. I've been always saying, and when we were always taught also, that, science is the study of nature. Nature has this all figured out. Okay. So if you don't know that, then just realize that, or, you have to accept it. And if you don't want to accept it, you will eventually, because truth is the truth. But, we've never actually really created anything that is as perfect as nature. I mean, we made airplanes, but that was because of the bird, and you try to mimic the bird. We've tried to do all kinds of things, but, we try to do all our creation. It's never as perfect as nature. And everything we create has an end. And everything nature creates doesn't. It's a regenerating, everlasting, forever. I mean, I know the arrogance of man makes them believe that maybe they're going to destroy this planet. No, you're not. There's nothing that you can do to destroy this planet. You can just pretend. And you might destroy yourself by the time it's all over with, but the planet will continue to just keep on moving and doing its thing. So.
Yeah, I remain an eternal optimist. I saw that in your book that you talk about that you are, like kind of an idealist or whatever. People call you an idealist or whatever, but I do remain optimistic, because just the fact that, like you said, is that our system, as it's created now, it doesn't have like a feedback mechanism to be able to adapt or create things according to the changes. Whereas nature continuously is in communication with everything, basically, and
Infinite intelligence.
it's got like this feedback loop to generate more and more complexity, and in that way the systems stay in balance without getting too out of whack.
Absolutely. Nature operates with order. Nature has an order. And so if you do not want to honor and love and respect that order, then, whatever. But, going back to the very beginning where you said, how did I come up with whatever I did? Well, I'm the mother. This home is run in an order that I establish. I establish that order. I establish the pace at which we run. I think right now there's a lot of folks that think that free range children means that the kids just do whatever they want. Because my kids are totally free range. But no, there is an order. There is an order. And also I teach them, and I don't ask them. So you asked me, how did I decide? How did I get everybody on board? I just did it. I just did it. I took everything. I just knew that whatever was in this house was poison, obviously, because we have somebody in the house with cancer. Something's wrong. I don't know what it is. So let's just start all over. Why don't we just start all over? And so I believe firmly that we are being led and spoken to by God and by our infinite wisdom all the time. And I'm like super pregnant at that moment. And our daughter is dying, and I have another son, right? So he was 3, and I'm just like, I don't have time for this craziness. Like, I don't. It is my work to make sure that my children live and don't die, and that is all. That is my only work as a mother, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I don't know, but everything here. So one day, I didn't come home. I was home. My husband came home.
Okay.
And everything from underneath our bathroom sinks. I mean, I'm telling you, everything. There was nothing left under the sink.
Wow.
And in the kitchen sink and in the kitchen cabinets. And, we had freezers in the garage and fridges, because we entertained and we loved to have family and friends over. And so, I had food everywhere. And I love to cook because I just enjoyed it, for myself. It was fun for me. And I threw everything away. Everything. Salt,
Wow.
whatever. And my editor, when I was writing the book, she's like, what did you eat? Everybody's going to want to know, what did you eat?
Yeah.
And I was like, I have no idea. I don't even know if we ate that. All I did was cry. I just literally collected everything. And I was like, I can't eat all this. And my husband, I was super duper pregnant, like super pregnant. And also high risk. Because, Mina was in the hospital, and I was under, they said, she's older, and the dog, the baby, and oh my gosh. So it was a high risk pregnancy. And so nobody was really talking to me, like nobody was going to challenge me. So maybe that's why nobody challenged me also, but my husband anyway is a saint. He was just like, oh my gosh. He goes, so can I like donate this? And I'm like, are you crazy? We're not going to murder other people.
Yeah.
Like, no, you need to throw this away, and nobody ever needs to use it. And,
But,
I guess people could say that I was an extreme radical crazy person, but no, because if your kid's dying and you're just like, so then I just started going from farm to farm. And if what you were doing on your land, first of all, if you wouldn't let me on your land, I wasn't going to buy anything from you.
right.
Like, from market and stuff. And then if I came to your land and, I didn't know anything about livestock or whatever. I knew what looks like it's okay and what's natural, So if I went to somebody's land and it was all smelly and looked like Sanford and Son, I guess I wasn't really going to feel very good about it.
Yeah.
And, but if it was like, wow, you got all these animals and it's just, feels good.
Yeah.
Feels good. Whatever, if it feels good enough for you to stand there long enough, then you probably fine. It might not be an A in my book. I have a livestock report card in there, but I'm sure it's food. It's not poison the way I define in the book. I define food and poison, right? So
Yeah, yeah. So going into the poison stuff, it's like you were talking about how a lot of the eggs that come, you might be able to buy the egg for like 30 cents a dozen or something like that, but all those eggs are washed with chlorine that have chlorine that's gets seeps into them, and then all the skin products, like all the chemicals in the perfume and smell stuff and deodorants and dishwashers and laundry detergents and all that kind of stuff. They all have this accumulating toxic effect on the body, from my understanding, from what I've looked into.
right. What it's doing is it's disrupting your endocrine system is what it's doing. So what actually is happening is all of these things that affect all your senses, they are attacking your endocrine system. And what's also attacking your endocrine system is fear and sadness and struggle. And I mean, it's actually, we're doing a talk. I started this um, part of my food church series this month is we're doing this regenerative mamas conversation, and so we're going to be talking about the endocrine system and how it is affected. Because the endocrine system is the one system that doesn't have its own engine in the body. Like, you have to exercise or move or, but when you can't exercise and move, your mind has the power to control and move your endocrine system just by your thoughts. And so if you're not joyful in every moment, then it's going to affect your system. And so, right now you got these people, they can barely get to contentment, and
Oh yeah, it's a huge problem.
yeah, it's really, really huge. And so, and they have you believing contentment is the only level to get to. And I'm like, no, you should be when you're operating in appreciation and joy, it is exhilarating. It is ecstatic. It is high on high. I mean, love is like up there.
Yeah.
So these vibrations, because we're an electric universe and we have electrical bodies and we're vibrating, and so everything is in motion all the time. That's the other reason why, going back to that Flexner report, it's based on the fact that the body has no energy.
Yeah. That
That's
we're
fun.
like separated from nature in some way. We're something like a mechanical object that you can just screw the wrench the right way and you can fix the body somehow.
Well, they base it off of chemistry, which is a joke.
Right.
Because we're the body electric. And, if you don't understand that, look it up, body electric. Like, you don't have to believe me.
Yeah,
but
it's,
what I know,
David Becker, I think, wrote that book or something like that.
uh,
I know I have the book.
there's a bunch of
Robert
them.
Becker or something, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
But I have that book. I haven't read it yet. It's on my reading list. But.
Yeah. You know what's sad is I have the body electric. I'm actually looking at it right now. I can't see the author on there from here. And also, it's sad that I read all this stuff and I can't always remember all the authors. I always have to go back. And
Oh yeah. I mean, one that I read that kind of goes in line with what we're talking about right now was Morphic Resonance by Rupert Sheldrake, that was talking about how this interconnectedness that I was talking about, how the universe is like a self-learning system.
It's true. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're all one, right? We're just one love.
Well, we're this information network that it's simultaneously connecting with all the other nodes in the network, I guess, is how you could think about it. But I come from I'm working on becoming more self-sufficient myself and working on growing more of my own food and doing the homestead thing. And when we talked, we met at the Rouge Food Conference, and when you got up there and you gave your speech, you didn't hold anything back. You were like, I don't care what you guys think. It's like, I've seen you on the Unloose the Goose podcast and the agorist idea of how we change the system is through markets, I believe, because it is like that self-learning mechanism where we can exist outside of the system but build something way better. And then at a certain point, folks will be so interested in what we're doing over here that we'll outcompete those guys and we'll just leave them in the dust.
Yeah, I mean, listen, guys, there is no competition. That's the lie. The false belief is that there's competition and that you were only born to work and that's it, which is so far away from the intention of our existence. We are creator. So we are the decider of these things. I mean, when you were little, have you ever been told, what are you supposed to do if somebody's doing something you don't like? What are you supposed to do? Don't participate.
Yeah,
If you see if you see someone doing something you don't like, you don't have to participate. If they're being ugly over here, you could just go to the other end of the playground, or you could go to a new playground. You don't have to even be on that playground. I don't know. Kids today don't even have a playground, but like when we were growing up, there was playgrounds.
Yeah.
And it might just be the woods and it might just be by the creek, but whatever, So if we were playing somewhere and somebody's being ugly, then you could just say, hey, behave, or that's ugly, or, mind your own business, or be nice, or you leave. I mean, if none of these words work, then you could just say, okay, well, I'm gonna go. Or you could, back then we used to say, you hurt my feelings, you shouldn't have done that. And then somebody might say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I hurt your feelings. Sorry, that wasn't what I wanted to do. What I wanted to do was to say A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever, and then you'd be like, okay, don't do it again. And then you would just move on. Nowadays, somebody says something that you don't like and, everybody wants to kill them and, cancel them and whatever, get rid of them. And
I think that's, a lot of that's online, because when you do get face to face with somebody, they tend not to be as aggressive or whatever in real life. I don't know. Maybe you have another view on that.
Well, my experience is don't say nothing to me on Facebook unless you have the balls and the gumption to say something to me. And
Amen.
If you say it anywhere else, then I just really can't care about you. I mean, whatever. You mean nothing to me if you don't have the audacity to say it to my face, because that means, you're just weak. Like there's no reason for you to speak. Okay. And if you're going to step to me or anybody else, then you should be cautious and you should be conscious. And why aren't you just anyway doing that? There's no reason to be rude and mean and ugly. Okay. Just behave. So I will say that, but we were just talking about something and now I got lost in the playground.
Well, I was trying to talk about like how
creating our own. Okay, yeah.
You're in the city, and you got guys like us doing the homestead thing. But I think your message is like, why not both? We're in the city. We're supporting the folks that are out there in the farms and trying to become more regenerative and everything. And
hey, I'm for self-sufficiency, and I'm for self-responsibility. I also feel that we shouldn't have to regress. We shouldn't have to give up any of the technological advances that we have. And we actually have more than we're even able to have access to. And I believe that the future is going to be a lot more technical advancement, a lot more ease, and also a lot more honoring the law of nature. And there's going to be a time that I believe where we're headed is that we're going to be far more technologically advanced. However, we will be more deeply rooted and embedded in nature at the same time. And I think that it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be amazing. And, for us to be able to get there, there are many people, there are many of us that have been creating this, what you could call an alternate universe. And some of them are doing them the way that you are, Greg, like homesteading. And some of them are doing it like I am, where I'm saying, okay, you have this polyface, which is a farm, which is a different thing from a homestead. Then you have what's a farmstead, which might be something in between, which is between a polyface and a Greg doing his own, whatever. So if you're homesteading, then you're not really relying on the profit of what you're producing. You're
Right.
most self-sustainable. And then maybe you have an enterprise that you're doing that is helping you with that. Maybe you're doing something else, but whatever, you're creating something. But a farmstead is relying on production for profit. And then a farm, like a polyface, I'm gonna call them a farm because
Okay.
that's high volume professional farm, and they are not a CAFO,
Right.
but a farm.
Yeah.
And so they're able to produce at volume.
Right.
Now, a farmstead is not able to offer wholesale like a farm,
Right.
but they're able to feed a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because even Greg Dowd can feed a lot of people.
Yeah. And that's a goal in the future.
Oh, well, you will, and you can, and you can. You can, because I know off of 1 acre, I know people who are making $1 million on 1 acre.
Wow. Yeah, I got Joel Salatin's book, You Can't Farm, and then, your grading of the animals and everything in here of the products coming off the farm is really helpful. And maybe we want to talk about that a little bit, like,
Okay.
what's the highest quality meat in your opinion, or product that a farm can produce, and your grade A, so to say, if you
Okay.
want to go through that.
Well, first of all, I want all the farmers or producers who are reading the book to know that I did not want to put that report card in there. I feel like it's kind of insulting to anyone. It's kind of like creating a report card on how to raise your children. And, you can't, like, there's no report card that I could create really that's fair, on how you should do that. But what I'll say is that, the grade A in the book was based on number one, like heritage breeds or older.
Could you explain heritage breed? What does that mean specifically?
Yeah. So, and I kind of didn't want to say a heritage breed, and also I was trying to find a nice way to say, when you have livestock that can still do the deed and reproduce naturally, that was really what my intention was with that.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of livestock, now, like Cornish cross chickens, for example, that they can't naturally reproduce on their own.
Right. I see.
And to me, if nature says no, I say no. That's not an A.
Okay.
So, Joel Salatin wrote my foreword, and he told me to write the report card. And when I sent him the report card, he's like, this is pretty harsh, because, that puts his chicken at a C.
Right.
Because he's raising the Cornish cross, for example. And I was like, well, what do you want me to change? I mean, you're the expert on it, like I'm not even a farmer. And he couldn't change anything. He never would, if you know Joel, then I've known him for 15 years, okay, or 12 years. He is not holding anything back.
No. Yeah.
He's not going to hold anything back. Like, and he asked me to write the report card. He said, the book needs a report card. And I said, okay. So when I gave him the report card, he didn't critique one thing on there. He said it was harsh.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he said, how come
tough to meet that standard. Yeah.
Right. Well, and I just said, well, I said, I don't know that a C is bad, because his focus as a farm at volume
Yeah.
is efficiency
Right.
and affordability.
Yeah.
And so an A grade might, you know, just be a little too much like caviar,
Right. I see.
you
Yeah.
know? And so, but I will say that if you have been poisoned enough with all of the violations against your sacred bloodstream and toxins and Doritos and Coca-Cola or something, um, then you may be a little bit too chemically sensitive to be able to eat a seed.
I see.
And so you might need a grade A variety of livestock just simply because it's the least amount of toxins.
I gotcha. Yeah.
Now his beef is an A.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it could be more of an A if he would allow them to be older when they process. But again, he's got to manage efficiencies.
Right.
So, it would be, if it was up to me, I would prefer to have 5-year or older beef, because when you put ruminants on pasture, they really don't start marbling until after 3 years old. Now, there will be folks out there that say, well, we have Wagyu beef and we have this other variety and species and blah, 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 and whatever. The fact remains, the longer they're on pasture, the better they marble. Hence the reason Native Americans, when the buffalo herds were miles wide and miles long and took weeks to come through, they would only go after the oldest, slowest ones who had been living their lives out, and that was the fattiest buffalo, the more medicinal buffalo. And they weren't trying to go kill some baby buffalo.
Right.
And that was because the older ones that had been out there, they would have the most fat. They would have the more utility, because the more fat you have off of a beast, now you can make your soaps. Now you can make your candles. Now you can, have all the things that you need, and you can literally live off of that beast down to, tanning the hides and making clothes and using the bones for tools, and there's nothing wasted.
Right. Right.
So honoring that beast 1,000,000%. And, that was keeping the hoop of life closed.
Right.
And they always had food. I don't think anybody was ever hungry.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because there was so many buffalo. I had a friend of mine that he was recently traveling through. He came to visit me, and he was on his way to some farm up in Kentucky that they raise bison or buffalo, or like I guess when you breed a buffalo with a cow, you get a bison or something like that. But
yeah.
Anyway, he said that they're just really cool animals, and he wants to get into raising bison at some point in the future. So
I wonder how they keep them fenced in. I guess that helps them be more docile to be fenced in, because I'm sure buffalo, you can't fence them in.
Yeah, I don't know. But I remember going to see him when I was like 16, and we took a trip out to Yellowstone and saw the buffalo out there. They're just huge animals.
Yeah, think about it. They would feed so many and provide so much.
Yep.
So much.
So one of the questions I really wanted to ask you, kind of going into solutions on how you started this thing. Like, I read in the book that you started with just 3 families, I guess, with and you were going into a parking lot to deliver the food from the people, from the farmers you were picking it up from, I guess. How does somebody get started maybe doing something like you started here? Like,
oh gosh. Well, I am actually in the process of working on, and I was going to tell everybody this at the next Rogue Food event. I'm working on an affiliation for the food church.
Okay.
where I want people to be able to, because I was trying to figure out how to share it, how to grow it, how, it needs to be, because it needs to be
How
something.
somebody can replicate what you've done.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be a franchising kind of a thing because it's not, nothing in nature is cookie cutter, but an affiliation like, are you familiar with like CrossFit
Yeah.
gyms?
I
So,
have friends that do it, yeah.
oh, okay, yeah. So if you know anything about CrossFit and if you've been to these CrossFit boxes, which is what they call the gyms, then each of them are very unique. Each of the owners of those gyms are able to run the gym the way they want to, but there's a specific standard for the CrossFit workout or to use the CrossFit name, and to, work out in that way. So that's kind of what I want for the food church because it needs to be something that someone can manage, in the ways that suit their lifestyle, and the farms there locally that they're serving, or maybe they are the farm. I don't know. But if they want to call something a food church and they want to try to operate it in this way, um, then I just feel like there needs to be an affiliation so that they can have a standard where we would have a course. And I mean, because honestly, if just anybody goes out there tomorrow and decides, okay, I just want to find me some farmers and we're just going to do this, it really shouldn't be a big deal to do it. But the food system is so fragile, and most eaters are unaware of the fragility and the risk that farms have to take to be able to produce the food. And you could really financially ruin a family if you don't know what you're doing. And so it is really only because I don't want farms to be ruined. I mean, I know how hard it was for the farms that were working with me when we were first starting this and figuring it out. And a lot of them, the only reason
Because they're
I
taking a
would,
big risk, right? Because of the way that
oh my
all
gosh,
the regulations are and all this stuff to even
they're
attempt to go in a direction like this.
I mean, the regulators, the money, the lead time on beef, I mean, there's so many things. And whoever it is that's running the church, if they don't understand the financial responsibility for the way in which they move the meat and are responsible for the meat and how they educate, you have to educate the consumer because consumers don't know that milk is just coming every day and we don't care if you don't want it. And we're not going to throw it away because we can't afford to throw it away, and we're not going to tell the farmer to come back and get what didn't sell because that's ridiculous and that'll ruin a farm. So, a lot of these corporatocracy, um, false beliefs about how to handle and manage food, um, those things, those are very important. It's mostly the economic structure that I would want to probably. I mean, I don't know. I'm still outlining all of this. There's so many things to think about, but you have to be bold and responsible and kind of hard on eaters because you can't bend rules. The rules are there to maintain integrity for the person who's running it, for the person who's receiving it, for the producer, and it's really fragile, financially fragile, particularly for the producer.
Now,
Um,
now, what I was curious about was how you stumbled into being able to use the church and how that legal. I know in the beginning of the book you talked about how you were familiar with contracts, and I found it very interesting that I guess you were trying to be a singer at one point, and then you learned. I guess your mom had taught you some stuff about contracts, and then so is that kind of where you got into this thing on because of the legal pressures maybe coming after you? You were able to kind of maneuver and figure out how to stay outside of that the public realm, I guess is what it was called.
Yeah. So, what was interesting, I think it's fascinating, because I believe that there's this divine plan. God always has this plan that we don't know anything about. And everything I was doing, it's funny because that was what I was reflecting on in the book. I'm glad you kind of noticed that. Like, I thought I wanted to be a musician and a singer, and I had to learn contractual law. And I mean, my mom wanted me to learn it because she just was like, you can't be stupid now about this. You just, so she knew that if she was going to try to tell me her opinion or whatever, it wasn't going to work. And so she gave me this book. It was called This Business of Music. This Business of Music, I believe is what it's called. Or The Business of Music. This business or the business. But anyway, it was literally just the business aspect of music, and it outlines contractual. That was my first introduction to contractual law. And so I knew that it wasn't a contract if it didn't have a beginning and an end date. As just one basic piece. Like, there was a lot of things that I knew, but that was one basic piece. And so I thought I was being signed by Arista, which was a big deal back in the 80s. And what I learned was it wasn't a contract.
It wasn't a binding contract.
It wasn't a contract because there was no beginning and end date, and it was the first thing I noticed. And so I was 21 or 22, so I guess maybe it was early 90s. But anyway, I said, hey, there's no dates, and they were just like, girl, like,
Don't
you should
worry
just
about
sign
it.
Yeah. And I was like, there's no beginning and there's no end and there's no term. There's no term. Like, you can also, it doesn't have to maybe be a beginning and end date for a term. You could create a term for music based on albums. Like, maybe you say for one album, like a 1 album deal or a 2 album deal or something like that. But if you don't have a date, they can give you a 1 album deal and never do your 1 album, and you just are bound in this contract. And so I wanted dates.
Yeah.
Because, I don't even know if I like you. I don't even know you. So
right.
I need to be able to get away from you sometime. And when is that? When is that going to be? And so they were just like, you're never going to make it into this business and blah, blah, blah. And, they were literally just like reprimanding me. And I was like, well, I'm not signing that. There's no date. This isn't real. This is like nonsense. This is just you own me and you own my music. And you can just say that I got to do this, that, the other, and I have to be here and I got to be there. And basically it's like for ever, like, no thanks. And I just told them to kiss my grits. That's what I said. And then they were just like, oh my gosh. And I was like, I guess that's why Anita Baker waited till she was 30 something, because y'all are crazy. And so maybe I'll just be like her. I don't know. And I was so crushed. I was so upset.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, gosh, okay, Mom, you're right again, freaking male chauvinist. And, she was like, it's a man's world and they're crazy. And, and I was like, you're wrong. And, music is awesome.
Yeah.
And, I know.
Yeah.
It's not awesome. And then Prince, he came out with Slave, and, all of these people were coming out to fight their way out of their contracts.
Yeah.
Which is why, why they did that.
We have the whole thing with Free Britney going on now or whatever, but, she's almost basically being treated like a slave, pretty much.
Basically. I mean, her daddy made her a slave. That was even worse. I was like, there's stories about that, with the Jacksons, and I don't really know what's true about that, but, it makes sense. I can imagine how it is, because they owned a brand or the name or and so I knew that from the book, that all these little things, but,
Now, how, does that did that kind of give you the? I say this because when I did go to the Anarcho-Poker Conference, I met a guy called TJ Mars. He has a website called yourlaw.org. But, he was talking to the audience at the conference for his talk, was talking about basically when you look at the legal system, everything is based on a contract. Everything is a contract. Mm-hmm. So if you can start looking at the contracts, then you can basically separate yourself or understand how the contract works and and whether or not to enter it or whatever. So
So that was probably the best advice my mother ever gave me, because that was the introduction for me into contracts. And so now I knew that I could, have power or not have power based on that, right? And then I ended up in real estate.
Yeah.
So I was in Atlanta, and my music thing, whatever, and I'm hating men. And honestly, I went to my pool at my apartment complex, and I was just having some drinks and made friends. I was friends with our leasing agents there, and they were cool ladies, and one of them came out and she said, I really like you and I want to talk to you about something. And she said, I really think you would do really good, in real estate. And there's this company, because she knew I was like, what am I going to do? This is what I was wanting to do. And, I got to make rent, and I don't really know what I want to do with my life. This is so stupid, and I don't understand,
Yeah.
It was the best conversation I ever had in my life, again, because things are always working out for us, because, the universe has our back, and, all of our cadre of ghosts of all of these lovely people are just walking with us all the time. And I really feel blessed that I was constantly being led and carried into these things, and I was, so she said, go have a meeting, check out these people, because this is before websites or whatever. I have a website I could go look at. Okay. I didn't have a phone where I could just look it up. So she made an introduction, and I went and I got to know these ladies, and they trained you to 1,000,000% be able to help. We were working like this SOS team to help. We didn't own anything, we didn't manage anything. We used to go across the country in multifamily housing communities that were in the red. So all the management companies or the owners would
the management for the housing, basically.
Yeah, they used to hire us to come in and help them go from the red to the black, and we had to do it in, it was very aggressive. We had to do it in 45 days. We had to get them turned around.
Wow.
So that training was amazing, powerful. And that led me, I did that. I lived out of a suitcase for 3 years. So that was pretty rock star. Felt pretty cool. Like, I got to work in 36 markets across the country with this rapid education. And it did feel pretty rock star. So that was fun. If you're not going to make it in the music, you could at least do this.
Yeah.
So that was fun. It was in my 20s, and I was having a powerful education, and I was, learning about different markets and people in different markets and how that works. And what I learned was everybody's the same everywhere. I mean, they just want to be loved and just want to be respected and honored. And that's pretty much it, and just be honest. So, but I had aggressive sales training, and I was a professional closer as a side effect of this, right? Because I had to go in, I had to win over the team on the ground. I had to win over the owners. I had to win over the management company. I had to make all the employees not feel like I'm coming there to fire them and just make them like, hopefully we can just retrain them, because it costs money to fire people. You don't want to be firing a bunch of people. So,
yeah,
if you're on a $0 budget because they're in the red, you're just trying to help them turn that ship around as fast as possible. And so, I had to really finesse a lot of systems to make that happen.
Right.
And then I ended up in Philly, where I finally was like, I can't keep flying around all over the place. And I worked for the Apartment Guide as their national sales trainer, and that was cool. And that taught me, well, because I had this other experience, they wanted to leverage that experience for me to be able to train other apartment community staff, as their service to them as the Apartment Guide, right?
Yeah.
And as the publication, they were providing these classes and opportunities for these people. So they had me doing that across the country. So that was fun too. And then I ended up working with these builders. And everything I was doing was just one more step in being able to learn how to more powerfully finesse systems. And so when I started working for these builders, they were Italian. And they were like, okay, this is how you work with attorneys. And they basically trained me, with Philadelphia attorneys that they paid a lot of money to. They said, your job is to learn whatever they're doing in this scenario or this scenario. Because I became the multifamily housing director for them, and I was putting it all together for them from scratch. And so because I was writing everything from scratch, I was writing the lease and all the contracts. And so they said, I also had to know how to pursue legal action with any of the tenants or, whatever. So every legal, obstacle that we were facing, what I had to learn how to manage it. And because we were building multiple multifamily housing projects, I was with them upon new construction, and I was involved in the construction and the leasing up of the new properties from the beginning. And so there were a lot of contracts and a lot of deals. And like, we had one property where we were trying to earn all these green credits. And so I had to look over the contracts, and I was working with attorneys on a lot of contracts in a lot of scenarios. And that gave me the power to know that all I need to know is how to use the language, and I can write my own letters. I can make my own threat, because we weren't going to pay the attorneys to do that for us every single time.
Okay. So that gave you power to push back in the legal system and understand that you do have power in these contracts to assert yourself, basically.
Through legal ease, like words. The words matter.
Yep. So that was the road that I that I was going down. So I was interested to know how that helped it, and with being able to turn all these businesses around, that helped you with the farmers, right? Because you were able to say, okay, I want to get your product out to people. It looks like you're failing. How can I make it work for you guys? And everybody wins.
Right. And I mean, that was true. Everything I did led me right into being able to have those conversations with them. And some of them understood what I was saying, and some of them didn't. And a lot of people thought I was trying to, swindle them or take advantage of them, because that's kind of what they were used to, which is sad.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, you can try it, and if you don't like it, then just don't do it. And,
okay.
So we did that, and it was really hard, because what I needed all the time was like a backup farm. And so I kept asking Joel to be my backup farm.
Yeah.
And he was just like, no. And I was like, and he doesn't really remember this, but I don't know if he remembers how much he remembers of that, but he basically kept pushing me into corners, and I was like, it would be so much easier because I have all these eaters, and they need chicken.
Yeah.
And this guy can't really get to that number without this much money and this much whatever, or by the time his chickens are ready, my eaters are gone because they were mad waiting on the chicken. So it was constant seesaw, teeter-tottering back and forth of, I have the food, I don't have the food, I have the people, I don't have the people, and it was this thing. And so I now know how to make that be stable. And now Polyface is my backup farm, and that makes it a lot easier. But, It's like, I need help. I need somebody, because we're reestablishing something the government dismantled.
Yeah.
And so the competition is the government. And so, now. And
there's a big opportunity there to provide very, very healthy food for people. As the model that you've created can be like an educational model that is possibly replicated, but there was a lot of nuance in there that we were talking about in the book. Was that you had to make sure that you tracked all your orders and everything like that, and that everybody was kept track of with the membership of the in your 501c3 and all that kind of stuff. So so there's definitely a lot to figure out if you wanted to get to the point that you've gotten. But like, anyone can really start with just a CSA kind of model, like a food club kind of model, maybe, or?
Well, my first recommendation would be, you need to put the fire to the feet of the eaters. And you really, really need to make them make a commitment. So let's pretend that you're a chicken guy.
Yeah.
You only have chicken right now. That's all you have. If they want chicken and they don't want to be a member and commit for the whole chicken season,
Yeah.
they can just go away. Don't even sell them any chicken.
Okay.
Good luck trying to find good chicken.
Okay.
If they want to know what's the difference between this chicken and the grocery store chicken, give them my book. You know what somebody said to me yesterday, Greg?
What?
Someone said, I want you to justify what this is to me, what the cost of this is, the good food, the real food.
Oh, okay.
And I have fees too, right, for the CSA. So he's like, I need you to justify this to me. You know what I said?
What?
I said, that is not my work. I can't create your worth for you. Like, that is between you and you.
Yeah.
Anybody who's out there, and all producers need to say these words to their eaters is, when they're like, why is your chicken that much money? Well, this is what it costs. And if you want to understand what I'm doing, you got to read this book. So before you do anything with me or before I sell you anything, I need you to read this book and give them my book. And you can wholesale my books, y'all. You can get a case of my books at half off because I want you to use them. This is the tool that allows you to communicate with them because they just have no idea what's going on. If they read this book and they don't come back and want to buy meat from you, then they're crazy or they're not ready or something, but they will come back. I promise they will look for you sometime because something will happen and they'll come back. But I think that if you really were to use the book, it'll help because if this person who I was talking to yesterday would have said that to one of my farmers, I would have wanted to tell him to behave because that's humiliating. Why would you ask someone to justify to you what their work is worth?
I have a friend of mine that is a sheep farmer, and I've helped him, with some of the stuff that he does. And I have so much respect for that. It's him and his wife doing all this stuff, and it's like I would go insane if and I just helped him a few times and helped him out on his farm, but it's just incredible the amount of effort that goes into it.
I mean, they got to know things.
They know a lot of stuff. Yeah.
They got to know things. They're responsible for a whole lot of heartbeats, and the soil and the water gosh, there's so much to know about. And now they need to justify that to you who doesn't know how to dice onions. I don't think so. No. You don't know how to cook the chicken, but you want this person to justify to you the worth or the value of the chicken? I don't think so. You need to read the book is what you need to do. And that's what I told this gentleman. I said, I can't create your priorities for you. I just can't do it. And I won't do it. That is not my work. My work is to shine a light on what is truth. And your work is to decipher what amount of truth you want to participate in. That's none of my business. So I'm not going to do that. And neither should any of you. None of you should ever do that. That's ridiculous. If they don't understand what's going on and know that this has got to, why is this costing so much? Read the book. Read the book. I outlined it for everyone. And that way you're not telling them anything. And they could go look it up. They could go figure it out. They could go try to raise their own chicken if they want to. They should.
Yeah.
And if they don't want to, I didn't want to. I was like, whatever you need. What do you need from me?
Mm-hmm.
I knew something was wrong because whatever we had in this house from the store was not right.
Yeah.
And then when I started going out there to the farms and realizing what chickens are supposed to, I mean, if I bought something that looked like what I thought it should be living like, I said, well, what are they doing for the stuff in the store? That's what I finally asked somebody. And that farmer took me for a ride because we're not very far from Smithfield because I'm right
Okay.
here in North Carolina. Okay. And he said, well, can I take you for a ride one day? And I said, yeah. So we made a plan. And they took me out to see these CAFOs where they're raising hogs.
Okay.
I didn't even have to see anything. I could smell it. Did you know the drift in the air from the CAFOs in Smithfield causes asthma in children in Raleigh?
No. But you sure
All of
can
the
smell
people.
that stuff. My buddy that is a farmer that, yeah, he lives by a chicken operation, and then when the weather's the right way, you can smell that stuff. Like, it's just horrible.
And there's poison in that air from the ammonia alone. I mean, if you don't understand nothing else, just the ammonia. And whatever else. I mean, I don't know, those cesspools out there that they got going on. And, folks just don't. And then the other funny thing is they say, well, how do I cook your meat versus like meat in the store? I'm like, so you just basically identified that you realize and know that whatever you're getting in the store isn't what is the same as this. You can just look at it and know it looks different. So if you know that, then why do you need a scientific study to tell you that if you feed animals GMOs that it's not going to be good for you? Why do you need a study for that? If you're
Yeah.
waiting on a study, you're crazy. Like, use some logic. I like Sal's words: logic, revisionism.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of all of you guys on the Goose. That's actually where I found you in the beginning, was you coming on Unloose the Goose. And I was like, hell yeah. You're talking about the stuff that I'm trying to figure out myself, because we're a group of us have got together with like Derek Brose's Freedom Cell, John Bush's Freedom Cell
Mm-hmm.
concept.
Yes.
And the future that I kind of see coming forward is that we really have to create these networks between the folks that are trying to be outside of that system and provide value for each other in one way or another, so we can create that parallel system. And if you look at history, this is kind of how people survived through the collapses of different
Every.
empires like
Yes.
Rome and
Yes.
all these times, the Soviet Union.
Yes.
People created these networks that were basically outside of the collapsing system.
Right. It's called the uncivilized path. Like, we're civilized to death and everybody's killing each other. And, you can be following that uncivilized path in town like me. I'm in town, I mean, I got a backup plan. I just personally don't believe that I don't believe that somebody's going to come here and that I'm going to necessarily get kicked out of my space. I kind of don't believe that. And maybe I'm being naive, but I do have places I can go. I got friends. So I feel like, I'm kind of a minimalist also. I just feel like I also believe in the power of our words and our intentions and our expectations. And I fully 100% and expect this to be like the roaring 20s. And there's going to be a lot of chaos going on. And I'm just not going to participate. And the only thing that I'm really, really trying to do to be sure to secure my liberty and freedom is try to establish as much economic independence as possible. And so, if you can be free of a mortgage, probably number one, that there's that. If you can own the title to your land and not just the deed, that's bigger because that is what that maniac is doing. That somebody who we probably can't say his name because we'll just get kicked off the channel or something. But he's not buying deeds. He's buying titles. And if you pay attention, you never get the title to your property when you pay your deed off.
Okay.
You end up, that's why you pay taxes. So get the title. Figure out what has to happen to get the title if you can. And I don't have all the answers for these things, but what I know for sure is that if you have the title, you're tax free for one thing, because you're completely sovereign.
Yeah, I was looking into, a friend of mine actually got into some legal problems with the city of Huntsville in Huntsville, Alabama, for a zoning code violation. And he looked into this, and basically, I mean, they ended up putting him in jail for like 10 days, trying to condemn him, kick him off his property. And it was, him going into it was looking into possibly like the land patent was something that he was looking at.
That's the patent. The title is the patent.
Okay.
If you have the title, you have the patent. And if you have the patent, you're sovereign.
So I mean, he went down that rabbit hole, and he challenged the jurisdiction of the court on, and all that kind of stuff.
I hope he was rewarded something for all of that jail time and nonsense, because this is the overreach of the government. For anybody out there watching, this is absolute garbage. This is tyranny. This is ridiculous that they would put him in jail over basically what is a business contractual misunderstanding that requires ironing out. There's no reason for him to be thrown in jail like some criminal.
It was pretty bad optics because he's a Marine. He was a veteran.
He didn't leverage all that, because I'd have been like, you trained me on what the oath is, okay?
Yeah, he leveraged it, and that might have been the reason why he was released from jail early, because I believe he was supposed to be in there.
I can't even believe they got him in jail. That's so crazy.
Oh, yeah. I think there was probably a general or something on the Redstone Arsenal maybe that pulled some strings for him to get him out of jail, possibly. And they haven't bothered him. They haven't bothered him since.
He shouldn't have had to do that.
No, but he didn't back down. He simply just refused to. He just did not comply. Peacefully did not comply.
Right.
And I think that's what we're doing here when we're talking about getting outside of the system, and I think it's one of the most effective ways, if you look at history, is for taking down systems, is to just peacefully not participate.
Exactly. Don't participate. What are they gonna do? They're gonna be mad at you because you're not playing with them on their playground.
Why are you playing with us? Yeah, exactly.
We don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
I need my I don't care shirt on.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that in the at the Rouge Food Conference, and you're telling everybody, you're like, "Look, guys, I'm an anarchist. The government's not doing anything that's helping any of us."
Well, their only work is to protect and defend our liberty.
And they're not doing that.
And that is all. Everything else that they're doing is outside of their scope. And so, the problem is that they have also effectively redefined anarchy, and they have made everyone believe that anarchy is chaos, which it's not. And they've done that by paying a bunch of actors to destroy a bunch of property and kill people and loot and do whatever else kind of madness that they're doing out there. And I want to know where the oath keepers are and when they're going to stand up and say, stop it, because this is ridiculous. Just stop it, because it's ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous. And I mean, when they said that everybody marched up, to DC, I thought it was interesting that there was a media blackout. That was convenient. And
right.
I don't care about any political party. How about I don't care? I want to dismantle the parties. I want to dismantle the whole system. Don't try to tell me who I'm for or not or whatever. I'm not for any of them. What I'm for is the people. What I'm for is the people. And the mob can just go ahead and do what they're supposed to do, but they don't know. They don't understand what the law is. The law, first of all, our Constitution is not a negotiation.
Yeah, it's
It's a
basically
compact.
it's
You want to talk about contractual law?
it's
Go
bas-
look that up.
yeah, the Constitution codifies what is known to be natural law.
The Constitution is a compact. If you do not understand what a compact is, go talk to an attorney. And then the attorneys who don't know how to use a compact to defend anything, you weren't trained correctly. You didn't receive your degrees, the whatever money you spent, they didn't do a good job. They didn't do a good job.
Yeah, so we're coming up on the end of the 2 hours that I had with you. I appreciate you coming to hang out and talk with me today. There was one question in the audience that came up from the live chat. So this one came from Mariano Channel, I believe.
Okay.
And he was asking, what kind of food should we avoid, and what should we eat more of? Should I avoid all sugar and meat because they're cancerous? It depends, I guess, on what meats. But yeah, what do you say to that?
I say that any animal, even in its illness, has more life-giving force than any amount of plant material. And sugar is a plant, and wheat is a plant, and everything that most people are eating is a plant, unless you know it's an animal and it's not a beyond confusion or whatever chaos. If it is something that you cannot identify as a literal animal, if you can't identify it for real, then don't eat it. That's what I say. And,
Now,
I could get into circadian rhythm and a lot of other things, but I'm just going to leave it very simply at what should you only be eating right now in the midst of all of this madness?
Yeah, I remember you talking about being a caveman, kind of. Like if a caveman didn't eat it, that probably
we don't eat it.
We don't eat it.
And, they didn't have agriculture. Then you're going to have the religious people, The religious people are going to come out and say, well, I don't believe in Paleolithic time. Okay, I don't care. I'm using it as a metaphor. I mean, even Little House on the Prairie time. Let's go to, do you believe in Little House on the Prairie? Because if you could understand that how the West was one, how we were just, moving out west. Why don't we just talk about Little House on the Prairie? If you were living in the Little House on the Prairie times, then you're not going to be waiting to grow a garden.
No. Yeah.
And sugar, flour, and coffee was pretty hard to come by.
Those are all very luxuries, yeah.
Those were the only 3 reasons you went to the general store in town, and you would go barter your eggs or something for it.
Or have a line of credit or something.
Yeah, you did that, and you took some eggs, and you did some work, and you did whatever, but no. And, if you, even the peasants in medieval times, do you believe in the medieval times? I mean, I'm not sure. But if you believe in medieval times, then all the peasants ate all the meat, which right now they're trying to tell us you can't afford.
There's a big campaign against, meat.
Okay, also they're trying to tell you to take a pill to have an aversion to meat. Why? Because you don't have self-control? Why do you not have self-control? Oh, because you're on drugs, which is plants. Because plants are a chemistry project, and all you need is fat. And if you go and get for the people who are like, oh, well, I had allergy tested and blah, blah, blah. And and everything that you weren't allowed to eat was a plant. It wasn't an animal. Blood type people. Oh, what do you think of the blood type? Oh, if you follow the blood type diet, Well, there's no blood type diet that says you can't eat meat. There's a whole list of whatever for different blood types, because that's ridiculous. That has nothing to do with your nourishment, which is only about your plumbing, which is your digestive system. And that is all. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can make it convoluted if you want to, but
Yeah, one of the things that you were saying in there, something was basically stay the heck away from wheat. And
wheat is like
pretty
cocaine.
much wheat is like almost completely tainted from all the glyphosate, I guess, in the United States, from what I understand.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I had so many wheat growers come after me. And I was like, listen to me, you might be doing something wonderful. And then the company comes and picks up your wheat, right? They come and buy your wheat. And then for them to get it to market, they're going to, condition it. And when they condition it, they do that artificially. And it's none of your business, and they don't let it be any of your business unless you're trying to control. You don't care if somebody pays you for your wheat. Once it leaves your farm, you're done.
True. Yeah.
And then they go and condition it. And by the time it gets to, everybody's like, well, what about acorn? I'm like, I don't care. Also, you're not just eating acorn wheat. You're also eating Skittles. So let's just go ahead and be honest. Okay? If you're eating Skittles or Burger King or whatever, and then you also go and get acorn wheat, okay? If you're eating acorn wheat and then you also literally get anything out of the grocery store and eat it, or drink a Coke, or whatever, or take an Advil. I mean, most of the people that are doing the acorn wheat, they're also doing one of these other things, which might even include Splenda. I did see some of that at the conference. Who was using it? Somebody was.
But I did like the challenge that you put out in the book, which was to just eat from the local farmers and just in the season from May to October, I guess, and challenge yourself and your family to stick to that for however many months, and then log your results, and you could basically give some data for this regenerative agriculture and its health effects.
Yeah, I think that and people don't even consider these observations like real science, but this is science, observations, experiences, experiments, So I say that in your circadian rhythm, which is your hunting range, just buy food from people who are growing it that you can put your eyes on, and do that do it for a year, really, because then you know what's even available. Because I bet you bananas is not on that list.
No.
Nor is avocado or coconut.
Right.
For all you keto-friendly people out there. I know. Or almonds. I don't know. Well, maybe in California.
Yeah.
Maybe. I know. And then people are just like, oh my gosh, well, what do you eat? I eat meat and vegetables, or I just eat meat. We have meat. I don't really have vegetables. I mean, I don't know. I don't really cook vegetables, but I do. I don't cook vegetables.
Really?
I don't have any vegetables in the house. I mean,
what about fruits and I think you mentioned fruits and nuts, but very sparingly, I guess, in the book.
I have no nuts in my house. Don't buy them, except for pecans from Stephanie's mama that are local. And I only have the opportunity to get pecans for 2 weeks.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Or maybe it's 6 weeks. The season keeps changing. So.
Okay.
I mean, it's not a long time. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's not even a lot. It's not like I could probably have access to buy all I want, but I share with the membership.
Yeah.
So, and also what I've learned is I don't like to freeze them or put them away in any kind of way because they don't taste good. So we just eat them fresh. And if you're just eating them fresh, then it's not for a very long time. So that means that we only get to eat them for maybe 6 to 8 weeks. And because we're not used to eating them all the time, it's not something we think about. So if we have them for a little while, it takes us a little while to get through them, and we only eat a little bit. And so we're not going through that much, but whatever the little bit is, we do have that. Or like corn is in season here right now. I can get GMO free. I don't know how GMO free it is, but so yeah. I definitely get that for the kids, but I'm talking about, we've had corn twice.
Yeah.
And we keep forgetting to order it or ask for it or something because we're not used to ever having that. And then we go, oh, let's have some corn this weekend. And then it's almost over. At least for us here locally, it'll be over here in a minute. So I think we had corn 3 times.
Wow.
So,
that's,
yeah.
That's wild. So it's pretty much just meat and
meat.
Some vegetables sometimes, and
not really.
Not really.
I don't really cook. I'm like looking around going, what do I make? Nope, not that. And no. I mean, if you look at my fridge right now, I just have fish and meat and raw dairy.
Okay.
And raw
okay.
cheeses. And
I love cheese. That's
not raw cheese.
One of my favorites.
I have raw cheese. I've got raw cottage cheese. I've got raw sour cream. I've got raw yogurt. Raw butter. We got a lot of butter. We do a lot of butter. And eggs. And we do have some pickles.
Okay.
Like real pickles.
But I think what you were kind of talking about in the book was like, eat what your family likes, or like cook it in different ways and figure out how the best to prepare the meals and stuff.
Yes. And like figure out, I mean, I tried to feed them vegetables, and I'm really good at vegetables, and I make them Indian style and Italian style and Creole. And I mean, I can cook some vegetables, and I actually like the taste of the vegetables. I really love to take some okra and fry it up in some bacon grease.
Oh yeah.
So good. And, but it doesn't really like me. So maybe after a little while, and if I make fried okra for the kids, like that, because we don't bread it or anything. I just fry it in bacon. I mean, they think it's okay. But like when I was growing up, we used to run around in the yard and eat it like popcorn,
Wow.
And
yeah,
that was our snack. We didn't have potato chips.
I've grown okra for a couple seasons, and it in the South. I'm here in Alabama, and it just grows like wildfire. It just grows like crazy.
Well, when it's nice and thin and slender, and I just slice it and let it dry, so that it's not sticky. And I'll just first I wash it and I dry it. You got to lay it out, and then I can slice it and I try to fry it in some bacon grease so that it's not all like stringy and silky or whatever. And I mean, I know how to cook. Okay, but it doesn't really make me feel good. I like the taste of it more because for me, it was what I grew up eating when I was a kid, running around eating it like, it was a snack. And my kids just don't really want it, and they're happier with, and why would I go through all this work to do for them to be just like, I don't want to eat it. So I was just like, okay, never mind. So, pickles and relish is about the height of the vegetables.
Okay.
Kraut. They'll even like some kraut. When we were at the conference, they had kraut. There were some ferments there.
Yeah. I remember
So we
that.
really enjoyed that. But, yeah, just pretty much just the meat. Like, we're going to have pork chops tonight.
Okay. I
like to just grill.
Oh, yeah.
All the time.
Oh, yeah, me too. I'm trying to figure out my whole livestock that I'm going to do, and I think I've decided I'm going to do meat birds, rabbits, and I do the aquaponics, so I'll have the fish. So those are the three I want to focus on.
You need some. Said you have some friends and stuff. Y'all need some fatty four-legged creatures.
We have one guy in our group that is planning to raise beef. So, and
And
then
you
I
need some
and then
hog.
I have a friend locally here that raises sheep. So
Oh,
we have lamb that we have access to as well.
raise
So
it out to mutton.
yeah, yeah.
Let it
He
get really older and fattier before you process it.
okay. Yeah, so that was one of the questions I kind of didn't get to, but was kind of how basically you build the relationships with the farmers. But yeah, I mean, for me and him, it's just like I was very fortunate because we actually grew up together, and I go over there and I just help him with projects whenever he's got projects going on. He needs an extra hand and stuff. So you want farmers on your team is what I've always told my audience is that
Yes.
if you don't farm, at least make a friend of a farmer in your
Yes.
area. Try to make a friend, and that'll help you out, I think. So,
Relationship, relationships is the big thing. Yep.
yep. So, Niti, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you coming on my podcast and sharing with my audience. How can people join the Meat Riot and help support your work and what you're doing?
Well, yeah, go to our website www.farmtoforkmeatriot.org. So that's FARMTOFORKMEATRIOT and .org. And so you can go there, you can get a copy of the book, you can get a case of books if you want a case of books, you can donate and support our work. And you can keep up with me because all of my social media and stuff is there, so you can find me. I'm pretty accessible.
Okay, great. Yeah, that'll be in the description of the video. And once again, Niti, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you coming on to chat with me.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you for asking.
Sweet. So yeah, guys, we'll check you guys out the next time. Thank you for coming. For everybody that joined us in the live stream and the live chat. So I appreciate you guys. First time doing this on YouTube, so I feel like I've grown a little bit. At least I know how to do this again in the future, and keep expanding this and trying to bring more guests on. So thank you guys for being with me today, and